Good morning, all. Welcome to the second lecture on poststructuralism and deconstruction. Okay, yes, so we are continuing from this point. Why this constant high anxiety about language? The question. The question nowadays it's surrounded in whether discussing structuralism or poststructuralism. We already seen the discussion is almost always surrounded. It's revolving around this concept of language. This is and again high anxiety about language. Who does have this anxiety about language? Definitely post-structuralism. They are not ready to take it for granted. We might ask, when it seems to work perfectly well most of the time for day-to-day purposes, why should we be very anxious about this language? Because we all use it for our day-to-day purposes. Day-to-day life, we always use this language. Then why does this post-structuralism or deconstructive critique, why do they go for blaming that? Why don't they trust that as structuralism does? Why can't they trust? Why are they making unlikely comments like, yeah, you cannot trust language, language can always place you in the plane of anxiety or slip of tongue. All this come under their discussion. That is always, that takes you to something, what do you say, something which you didn't mean, and language may bring you to some unlikely confusions. This is the way they try to argue whenever the discussion of language comes. And that is a question it's put here. See, why do you make this unlikely? Why do you keep this unlikely anxiety about language? But on reflection, we may find that it is precisely on this matter of anxiety about language that we can most easily identify with the post-structuralist concerns. We also hold this high anxiety language. The examples shall be given to you later, at a later point in this text itself. So we are also confused. We are also not that confident about language. The reasons shall be given once you talk about post-structuralist concerns. For these anxious feelings seem remarkably pervasive whenever we have to use language at any level beyond that of casual daily exchange with the people we know very well. Okay, I'm communicating, I'm talking to you. We all know well, and even if it is between among your friends, you don't have to be very formal. Even if you make errors, no, it's okay. They may identify still, and it's fine. No problem. I can communicate without much barriers. So, casual daily exchange with the people you know very well, that's fine. With errors and all, you are not. Or even if I communicate something, if they take something, if they see, if they decode my message in a wrong manner, then even then it's okay. Let us see, keep it for the time being, or at least the communication will not be broken as such, or the relationship will not be broken as such. Whose status is same as our own. See, among friends, among family members, even okay, the language doesn't bring us much confusion and anxiety. Yeah, so that's we talk about formal and informal communication. For instance, see certain examples given by Peter Barry in his text. Let us see slightly less straightforward language situations. Now he talks about something else from that. That is, now you think about some slightly less straightforward language situation. You have to communicate in slightly less straightforward. To your friends, you can be very open, very frank, very friendly. Without much formality, you can use the language that you know, the common language you know. But think about the situations that are listed out below, where you are really careful. You try to be very careful while using the language. See here, writing to your bank. You're much confused. debit, credit. Oof, if I use the one instead of the other, or if I communicate the wrong message, I may lose the savings, or I may lose the interest, or whatever it may be, but you are really, really, really worried about using the language. Next, writing an essay for the examination. Are we all confident about writing an essay for the examination? Are you? No. We are always much tensed. Oof, I may use was instead of where, or is instead of as, or has instead of am. Whatever it may be, you are confused, or you are in an anxious state of use, a state while using this language. Writing is striking up a friendship with a stranger at a party. You are talking to a stranger, and you can just imagine how formal you are, or how formal you try to be. You're not very comfortable while communicating in these situations. If it is about writing, or if it is about talking, if it is just chatting, or whatever it may be, you're much anxious about communicating something which you didn't mean. Mainly that you do mean something, and you're worried that total stranger or the formal official may take something entirely different from what I wanted to communicate. So you're worried about using this language. Why does this worry come? That is the next question. So next, another thing, sending a letter of condolence. Also, that is another example of these formal situations where you are anxious about using the language. You're not that comfortable as you think about, or if as you think about communicating to your friends, or if you communicate to your well-known friends. Well-known in the way you're familiar and you are very close friends or companions, you're very comfortable. Even if you're not that well-versed in a language, you try to communicate. You try to make your points with whatever you know. Yeah, even if a few errors if I make in the use of this language, some grammatical errors, okay, fine, they may identify that, still it's fine. But in these situations that are listed, which are not really straightforward, it's less straightforward and more formal, like writing to bank, writing an essay for an examination, or whatever, and striking up a friendship with a stranger at a party, and a letter of condolence. All these are inviting or demanding some kind of a formality on your part. And so, this language, these structuralism people had been praising about. That is okay if you just communicate the matter and that is over. No worry about, no need of anxiety. But these situations itself bring this kind of an anxious, that notion of that anxiety. You just can identify how much formal we may be in such situations. Then let us go to this. In these cases, and many more. These are a few examples for such formal situations. Many more. There is an almost universally felt anxiety, not just with the people who are not well versed in the language, but a universally felt anxiety that the language will express things which we hadn't intended, things which we didn't intend, or the language will express something which was beyond, or which is beyond our intention. Intention means we mean it. We wanted to communicate, but you are always anxious. Not just you or me or some a few people among our circle, but most of the people feel. That is why it is a universally felt anxiety. Whether you are Malayali, whether you are English, you are using English, whether you are using Hindi or Tamil, Carnatic, whatever language, whichever language it may be, this universally felt anxiety may be there. You can locate that. That this language, I mean something, and that person may take something entirely different from what I meant. And the certain problems may be there, or that may occur in that relationship. See here, or convey the wrong impression. Oh, I communicate something. I tried to communicate better to that official. Still, a wrong impression had been created because of some other language quirks, the problems, or betray our ignorance. So you worried, my languages may betray my ignorance, carelessness, kind of a very tedious, very tough situation it is. Carelessness or confusion. My ignorance may be revealed. You worried. You are worried. Or I am worried. Any person belonging to or any person using any language may be worried because, in this manner, in a less straightforward situation. So, what is the question? What is the point that becomes clear here? Even when we use a phrase like, just see, if you see what I mean, if you see what I mean, or in a manner of speaking, sometimes we take this as bail. Jamyam poleyanu. If you see what I mean, if you don't mistake me, if you don't misunderstand, all this way we try to make it more formal because there is chance, every chance that a person may see it in the way you didn't mean or you do not mean. So you want the person to see, take that the way you mean. So that every chance, every moment, other person or other persons can take something which is entirely different from your meaning. What does it mean? You cannot trust language. So that is the point of post-structuralism. If one thing is communicated and one person, two persons, 1,000 persons in front of you take the same meaning, if you communicate something, you don't have to say if you see what I mean or in a manner of speaking, so that other way of speaking is possible. In other manner also you can speak this. In a manner of speaking, so that again you are taking a bail, B-A-I-L, bail. Almost like a bail, taking a bail. Cautionary mode of taking, it's a cautionary mode of saying, if in a manner of speaking, so that another manner also may be possible, but I would like to make my point in this manner. What does it mean? Again, you cannot trust the language. Again, the sentence you are going to tag with this may have another meanings, or other people are free to choose other meanings, free to read in any way they want to. What does it mean? That means what post-structuralism says is true about language, what post-structuralism says is true. That is, meaning is fluid. Language, anytime your meaning, you cannot have one single reading for a text. Just one sentence or a paragraph or a novel, a short story, poetry. I give it for reading to thousands of people. Thousands of them. It's an exaggerated way. Even then I tell you, they can substantiate their points. Thousands of readings are possible. You cannot insist that, no, this is a poem written by me. So you do not have to read it in that way. I will get you the meaning and you read and comprehend in this way. No, you cannot do that. You could do that before the advent of post-structuralism. Before this, this deconstruction came into being. Okay, just one reading. A reading of a poem, a universally accepted, or a majority of people accept a reading for a poetry or poem or any piece of writing, and the whole reading public stayed satisfied with that. But what about now? No chance at all, because deconstruction, they have decentered everything of this, every but see, inflexible notions of that kind. They told that this day, this meaning. Next day, you can come, the same person may get another meaning. Gust as a term did have this kind of an etymological connection with the hostis, enemy, possible, unwelcome nature of a gust. That is hidden meaning. Today yesterday I didn't know this kind of an etymological connection. So whenever I saw this term gust getting used in any of the literary contexts, I didn't feel that, okay, gust, fine. But next day I find out this etymological connection. And every time this negative meaning also is possible with this term. That is the way readings change. So only provision is to say, if you see what I mean, not the way structuralism. If structuralism says this, you see the way I mean. This is the only way you also can take. But there is no assurance of as such in the case of once post-structuralism starts actually deconstructing the very notion of this inflexible or not even inflexible but the trustworthy nature of language. They told that no chance. You just can say like, if you see what I mean, you're not confident about that. What you mean, others can mean in an entirely different way. That's the way you can only that is, but and you have to accept that as such. That is the point at which structuralism and post-structuralism they are not really happy about the way they deal with the language in a manner of speaking. So other manners of speaking, other manner also you can speak. There is the same underlying sense that we are not really in control of the linguistic system. See, if you see what I mean, and I say something, I am constructing a sentence, and if I am completely in control of this linguistic system, why did I take this veil, or why should I take such a veil? Or an excuse like, if you take, please, this is the way you're almost like, see, you're not confident. You're not really, it's the underlying sense is that I'm trying to communicate something, but my meaning, I cannot insist or I cannot impose on you. You may you have the freedom. The other person, the listener, the reader, whoever it may be, is on the next side, has the provision or the right to choose another meaning. So that is why you are not really completely in control of the linguistic system you are using. But structuralism says that don't worry, you communicate and nothing is beyond that. There is nothing beyond linguistic processing. But post-structuralism says we are not really in control of the linguistic system. See, please see the highlighting, if you can note down whatever most often whatever is much connected with the post-structuralism, because that is our topic of discussion. I have highlighted with the bold letters. The font is much bold than we talk about. Yeah, structuralism. Most often with the structuralism, I didn't make it bold in bold letters, bold font, to highlight the point, to make it more clear that it is about post-structuralism. Okay, yes. So not really in control of the linguistic system. We are not really in control of the linguistic system. Obviously, that is a notion, idea that comes with the post-structuralism. Okay, so whole file will look like this. I'll try to make it in this way itself for your better understanding. Okay, yes. These feelings writ large are really the same, or at least surely have the same source as the radical linguistic skepticism. So all these points lead us to one thing, that is the radical linguistic skepticism. What do I mean by radical? Very strong. Radical politics, all those you talk about. Radical means high, very enthusiastic or very strong, very intense. Radical linguistic obviously connected with the language. Skepticism means you are doubtful about. So this whole, you read it whole, radical linguistic skepticism is very typical of deconstruction. You take the day-to-day life context. You talked about the daily life use of language, certain situations we analyzed. Well, you are very easy to communicate with your friends, but whenever you take the language to a formal situation, you are worried. So that universally felt anxiety, and we can identify with that. So we also know how language can bring you to a confused state. It's not as structuralism claims like you just have a brief idea about language, or if you be comfortable with the language and its rules and structures, so that whatever you communicate, you try to communicate, will be communicated as such the way you want. No chance. At any moment, others have the right to take an entirely different meaning. Others have the right to choose something which you didn't mean at all. That's why you say, "Oh, I didn't mean that," but you mistook me. You're mistaken, but the other person has the right to mistake. That is the flexibility of language. That is the fluidity of language. It's not as you people, the structuralism people say like, it's like it's a container which is fixed and you are not supposed, you don't have to be confused. This is the way these people have this kind of a see. We in the very beginning we saw why see post-structuralism is not really happy about what structuralism says about language. Okay, yes, yeah. Then, so this is very typical of deconstruction. Once you talk about something typical means that is the exact idea given by deconstruction as well. That is why you are confidently deconstructing the texts. One reading had been there which was really accepted, which was much appreciated, but today you come up with an entirely different meaning. And you are really happy about doing, because language is flexible. The meanings are flexible, floating free. It's not like you are doing, you have a stagnant, you are looking at a stagnant water body. No, it's flowing like anything. Deconstruction treats meanings as they are just flowing. It's flexible to decide a meaning, to write about something. All these provisions, this freedom. Freedom is highly promoted in the use of language, in the use of meaning, in the use of interpretation everywhere. Okay, yes. Here, then is a way into the post-structuralist frame of mind, yeah, which lies very much within attitudes and anxieties which most of us experience. See, anxieties which most of us experience. That is communicated here with the post-structuralist stand. However, perhaps, yeah, it will be helpful simply to list some differences and distinctions between structuralism and post-structuralism. These are already taught to you in the other paper, but still this may have a lot of detailed mode of talking. That's all. So we are going to list out under different titles, under four headings actually. Four headings. I will just get you the idea. First, we will talk about the origin. Origin, the difference between the origin of these two. Which is not really new to you, I'm sure. But still, here we are going to talk about that. So first, under fourth title, the major differences between structuralism and post-structuralism, we will be discussing. So first one, it is about origin. Which is the origin, the discipline from which structuralism originated and post-structuralism originated. Second title may be tone and style. Tone and style. If you go to the other part of the text, you will see already, these are already, two. Second one, tone and style. These are highlighted. Tone and style. Third one, it is about attitude to language. Once the attitude to language, and the last one, it is project or aim. Fourth one will be the title. Fourth one, it is project or aim. I will just show you, just for the sake of our your better understanding. Fourth one, it's project or aim. Aim of one each theory we will discuss. So under four titles, we will discuss the major differences between these two. Okay, so just let us begin from the origin. Origin. First title, it's origin. I'm going to that. Yeah. So actually in beginning theory, the text that I use in a print version, it's the third edition of beginning theory by Peter Barry. In that text, this is from page number 60 to 63. This part actually it's from 60 to 63. Okay. Don't worry, this is much, the font size is much higher. That's why this shows much more page numbers. But I'll send you the text and then it will be more clear for you. Clear to you. Now, origin. First, structuralism derives ultimately from linguistics. You know already, linguistics. Linguistics is a discipline which has always been inherently confident about the possibility of establishing objective knowledge. Should I tell more about linguistics? You know, you already studied that. Almost all of us belonging to language know this. How confident they are about the possibility of establishing objective knowledge. You are given language rules and you base the structuring, constructing all those on behalf of language based on the rules. If you are having some rules, if you are having already established the theories, then you are more confident. So they stick on to this possibility of establishing objective objective knowledge through language. It believes that if we observe accurately or collect data systematically and make logical deductions, then we can reach reliable conclusions about language and the world. Yeah, actually, this is not supposed to be highlighted if I told it should not be in bold because this is just about structuralist conviction. You know, right? So, if you observe accurately, teacher gives you some rules. Yeah, singular subject, then singular verb, or the concord rules of concord, punctuation rules, all these you are given and you observe accurately. You collect data systematically, you try to go for the IC analysis or whatever it may be, and you collect all those data systematically. You identify the noun, you identify the verb, you identify the adjective, even the type of adverbs or everything. You know, all those data are collected systematically and make logical deductions. Yeah, so singular subject. So that let me use the singular verb itself. Yeah, past action. So let me choose that verb form itself. So in this way you make logical deduction. What structuralists say. They say that then we can reach reliable conclusion about language and the world. Don't worry, you are communicating it accurately well in that case. That is what they claim. Structuralism inherits this confidently scientific outlook. This is a confidently scientific outlook. Definitely you stick on to something. Yeah, every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. You put the theory under whatever you see in front of your eyes. So whenever you have such situation, you try to put the theory, you try to connect the theory and the practical side of that. It's a scientific outlook. You are much confident. Something is invented, it is approved as a theorem, and you can use it with all your confidence. So definitely the system of linguistics is a scientific study actually of language. So that it has its own scientific outlook for anything and everything it treats. And it too believes in method, system. Method, system, and the reason as being able to establish reliable truths. Method, system, nothing to do with the post-structuralism actually. Nothing to do with, I will not say, but in the case of language, so let me make it, the bold letters are not written because we will have much better understanding with the post-structuralism getting highlighted with more specificity. Yeah, specifically I will have to talk about post-structuralism, but still we cannot avoid this. And method, system, and reason as being able to establish reliable truths. Reason, all this. If you use your reason, if you go in a systematic manner, if you follow methods, you will have very better established truths. The reliable language is very reliable. That's what structuralism says. See, and next paragraph I have made. See, divided this into a paragraph. By contrast, post-structuralism derives ultimately from philosophy. I gave you a funny definition for philosophy then. It's a searching for a black cat in a dark room which is not there. Philosophers are always like that. They are always in search of something new. They do not want to stop their search for knowledge or something which strikes their attention. They are in search of something, and once they reach a conclusion, next from there they again begin. So almost like a relay. They're almost like it's a chain process. Works out like chain. They are just moving and moving with their thoughts. So there is no end in their search for knowledge. That is the nature of that subject. And from that, this post-structuralism derives. And that is the same way they also are not really happy about fixing some meaning for texts or conversations or piece of writings. They want to get something new, entirely new. Today I have a reading, next day the same same reader can have another different meaning. That is the way philosophy also goes. Searching for a black cat in a dark room which is not there. As it is dark, you do not know that this black cat is not there. And you go on searching. So no chance at all to get an end meaning or end search. So there's no end for the search. It's very metaphorically talking, but still that makes sense in the case if you talk about philosophy and the very notion of their moving, their treatment of the subjects. Now, philosophy is a discipline which has always tended to emphasize the difficulty of achieving secure knowledge about things. You see, very difficult it is to achieve secure knowledge about things. They have accepted that. Philosophy also accepts, the discipline, the term you please note down, it can be an area of study. Not just the way you talk about discipline in a classroom, discipline in a campus. No, not just that. It's another meaning for that. Okay, so philosophy is a discipline which has always tended to emphasize the difficulty, always tended to emphasize. Emphasizing means you try to put it where you try to assert that, emphasize the difficulty of achieving secure knowledge about things. Now let us go to our Nietzsche next. This point of view is encapsulated in in Nietzsche's famous remark. Nietzsche is an existential philosopher. We will come across him later. But just to see what he says, there are no facts, only interpretations. What is the significance? There are no facts. There are no facts, but only interpretations. If you assert something to be a fact, then there is no chance for you to go beyond that. That is complete in itself. A fact. It's a fact. What is the Malayalam term for that? Vastudam. There is no going beyond that. It's almost like this is it. No something else beyond that. But here what he says, Nietzsche says, only interpretations. My interpretation, your interpretation, XYZ. How many people are there for to interpret something? N number of interpretations for the same thing. Same paragraph, same passage, same book, same poem, same passage. So this is the way all these varieties of the meaning, the fluidity, flexibility, and language as a system which is very rigid as it is told by, or it's asserted by structuralism. It's getting questioned here with all these points. Well, even in the day-to-day life, we are not really confident about our language. Anytime other person may mistake what I say, or in a very less straightforward situation, how anxious we are. So, what do all these signify? All these lead to the same point. That is not actually reliable. It's not actually a influx. It's not actually closed a container, as this structuralism tries to assert. So, this difficulty of achieving secure knowledge is there. You get a poem, and teacher interprets the way she knows, and you try to learn it by heart. For the examination, you go and vomit it in the answer paper. There was a time when you used to get full mark, because certain very famous guides had been there, which comprised the part and parcel of our school, especially our school education systems. I don't have to mention the name, you may be aware. So we did want that, even if we had the textbook, even if the teachers used to give us notes. I don't know about your school time, but during our time, that was actually part and parcel of our. Without that, it was almost like something was missing. The guides we wanted to. So every month the editions came, and that's the had been certain readings for a particular poem, for a short story, for a fiction, and the students had the tendency to read by heart that and to go and directly vomit it in the answer sheets. So that why do you trust that particular reading, or from where did they get that? From where did the people writing the guide did get the meaning? Why didn't they think about another meaning? Because already some established readings had been there, and the people used to hand over that year after year. If we talk about post-structuralism and the origin, the time of its origin, you may be confused. Teacher talks about the time when of course it's most often, in my case, in my school time also, if you talk, it is not that remote a time period. It's more, anyway, it is after 1990s. Then post-structuralism was flourishing. It's already in its established state. But the problem is whether that is getting prominence in a country. Nowadays, we all have this tendency to deconstruct, to come up with the different readings. Nowadays, I give you a reading for a poetry while teaching. But students may have the tendency to think, oh, why it is only that? Another reading is possible. Why can't it be that? Why can't this be this? So this tendency is possible, and that is how, yeah, theory is there, but to bring it into the realm of practice, it takes time. That's why even during 1990s, 1995, 1910, sorry, 1990s or 2000, all that time we still used to hold or to have a passion for these established meanings. It's not that post-structuralism did not get or come into being during those years, but practically it's good. It's good that we have another reading. It's good that we don't have to cling on to the reading given by the teacher. Why should I? Why should I take this reading, write down this, and go and by heart that? After all, it is a literature text, right? So I should have the freedom to interpret it in my own way, my own perception. Why don't I get the chance to? So this should be the question put forward by every student of literature, every person who is interested in literature. And that provision is very liberally allotted by post-structuralism by telling that there is difficulty of achieving secure knowledge. You think that the teacher gave you a very secured knowledge about the poem, a very secured reading about the poem, and no question at all about that. But now with the post-structuralism, they say that Not at all. It is going to be at any time this reading can be questioned. The reading is at stake. You can question the reading and come up with another really different reading. Okay, yes. So that is why Nietzsche says there are no facts, only interpretations. Your interpretation may be valid, my interpretation may be valid, any person, but it's not that you come up with something very see, there is nothing at all to connect with the writing and still say that this is the time of post-structuralism, so I will read it in the way I would like to. That is not there. You should, that is again the condition is there that you can substantiate your points, your argument points should be valid. Okay, so that is the way you talk about interpretation. And philosophy is, so to speak, skeptical by nature and usually undercuts and questions commonsensical notions and assumptions. You think that this is very sensible to talk about that reading which is already established. But philosophy is very skeptical. They are very dubious, doubtful by nature, or they are doubtful, and they question the commonsensical notions and assumptions. And its procedures often begin by calling into question what is usually taken for granted. That is the main point. What is usually taken for granted, already established, already almost like inherited wealth. You take certain readings. Oh, that is Shakespeare's poem. That's its meaning is this, and this is very established. It's taken for granted. What do you mean by taking something for granted? You trust that. You swallow it with water. Without water. Swallowing something without water means you do not know the taste of that. You do not want to know the taste of that. You just take it without taking much effort. So that is the taken for granted situation. But no longer that is possible. Philosophy or deconstruction, post-structuralism, all these new philosophy is not something new. But from philosophy emerged this entirely new area of, entirely new theory, entirely new movement, which really wants to question these already taken for granted meanings, notions, ideas, everything. Okay, yes, post-structuralism inherits this habit of skepticism and intensifies it. They inherit it because they came from, post-structuralism originated from philosophy. So definitely it's certain qualities, certain nature it inherits, and again year after year or the way it moves along, it intensifies that. Okay, and it regards, just a slide, let me make it clear. It regards any confidence in scientific method as naive. What do you mean by naive? What do you mean by naive? You are ignorant. You are shutting your eyes in front of the reality. You are naive, ignorant to a very unaffordable state. You are in college and you ask certain questions which are not which are of the age which are supposed to be asked by the child of some first standard or second standard, then you are labeled as naive. Sometimes it happens with sometimes the immature way of behaving. That is what they say. It regards any confidence in the scientific method as naive, and even derives a certain masochistic intellectual pleasure. Very important point, from knowing for certain that we can't know anything, we can't know anything for certain. See their audacity? What do they say? We get a pleasure, we are very happy. Who says this? Post-structuralism. Okay? Even derives a certain masochistic intellectual pleasure. Masochistic pleasure is the pleasure you derive out of pain. Please note down the term. Masochistic. You know, the people who sometimes, if you're You might have come across people who are in a state of what do you say? Sometimes you might have come across the situation. See people hurting themselves and laughing, drug addicts and all. Sometimes it happens with them. Only we do not usually expect this masochistic pleasure in normal people, but masochistic intellectual pleasure. This very positively told here. They say that yes, we get the pleasure from knowing for certain that now we are sure that we cannot know anything for certain. Okay? We are happy about that. Why should we know anything, something for certain? That is the stand of them. That's a very different and very funny, very commendable stand, I say. Otherwise, you are in search of something. You read a novel, you read a short story, you read a poetry, and you're fine. You are safe and secure. You stay satisfied with what is already there. How does it make sense? Especially in the case of literature. You have to read, you have to read and read and read. You have to find and find and find something new day after day, year after year. A novel I read in 2020, 2008. If I choose to read that now, I may get a lot of different meanings. My perceptions change, my life change. Same with the case of anyone. In the gap of 2 or 3 years, if you read the same book, same poem, you are having entirely different perceptions on that. Why should we talk about poems, short story? Just think about some movies during childhood. Certain things at which you laughed. You thought that it is comic. But now we may realize that this is something entirely, blotted with the racism, patriarchy, certain dialogues which you tried to praise just because of the passion for for an actor or an actress, whoever it may be. But now after having a perception nowadays, we have a lot of discussion on marginalization, racism, racial issues, or other biases, gender issues, so that your perceptions changed and you cannot stick on to the reading interpretation you did hold in 2008 or 2009 or 2012. You have an entirely different meaning, entirely different reading. And that is the provision allotted by them. They said that if we are getting such kind of a pleasure by knowing for certain, we are sure, okay, we are certain that we cannot know anything for certain. അങ്ങനെ ഒന്നും കൃത്യമായിട്ട് അറിയാൻ പറ്റൂല എന്നുള്ളതിൽ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് വിഷമമില്ല. വി ആർ നോട്ട് റിയലി വറീഡ്. അതിൽ നിന്നൊരു തരം സന്തോഷമാണ് കിട്ടുന്നതാണ്. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് എ കൈൻഡ് ഓഫ് audacious stand, but still very commendable as well. And fully conscious of the irony and paradox which doing which this is entailing a kind of irony, paradox, everything may be there. In there, one may be contradicting their own statement. Certain paradoxes come in between the communication, but still with all these, they are really happy about the flexibility of meanings, readings and interpretation. Who? Post-structuralist critics. Okay? Yes. So tone and style in the next class. Thank you so much for listening. Okay.